Hello, this is a breakdown of my song Fall Back to You with Nina Sung. So Fall Back to You is the fourth track on my album, and I recorded these vocals with Nina, I want to say 2 to 3 years ago in Vegas. And that was a really great session. I remember she recorded in her closet, which actually makes for a really good sound booth, I will say. And there was a couple versions of the track that I went through before arriving at the final one. But I'm very happy with how this one came out. I would say it's probably one of the heavier tracks on the album. And honestly, I think Nina sounds just really great on this track as well. And I remember the vibe we were going for was like very metaphorical with this track, which is like very 7 linesy, I would say. When you go for a vibe like that, obviously the song is like very kind of serious feeling all the way through. But I will say though, I think we were very successful with achieving that vibe and making it just feel really strong, well-rounded all the way through. But yeah, so I say let's just get into it and start breaking this down. So first things first, as I like to do, let's take a look at the writing. But thankfully, this shouldn't take too long. If you watch the other two videos of mine, I went really in depth on like the variations of the chords and how it adds so much to the track. But with Fall Back to You, that is honestly the opposite case. As you can see from the bass line, it's just a 4 chord progression all the way through in the breaks. And the drop is basically doing the same thing with a little bit of a deviation at the end. But like I was saying in the other videos, baking in a lot of depth into the chords and the fundamental writing of a track is really great. Other times it doesn't really call for it. And I would say with Fall Back to You, the vocals really carrying it. And then I would say the drops, at least the first drop is more production centric. And then getting into like the second half of the first drop and then the second drop, it is carried by that lead melody that you hear. So in terms of having a progression that was very rich, it didn't really need it in the song. But just taking a look at it, we're in F minor. And as you can see, this progression is just a 6, 7, 8, 3 all the way through in the breaks.
You've got me hoping for sunrise and night. I think I'm losing my damn mind. But please tell me pretty lies. Tell me that you'll be there. Everything's just fine. Yeah, I won't care.
Yeah, and that's just carried into the chorus. And again, with the drops, the first note of the progression is held for the first quarter of the drop. But again, it kind of does the same thing with a little bit of a deviation at the end. But yeah, so the good thing is we're not going to talk about much writing in this track. We're going to really focus on the production and then the vocal comping. So in the intro, we have this pad here playing with this like vocal ad-libby thing. With a little bit of a top lead layer here too. Very simple, very dreamy. Just again, for like the vibe of the song, that's really all you could have. Like having some crazy guitar or something would just completely deviate from the vibe of the track. So just having a lot of atmospheric elements is really what makes the breaks just feel lush and kind of like dreamlike almost. This pad here, Simple Serum, square wave. Yeah, and it just kind of stays filtered out the whole time. But then these leads here, yep. And then, as I mentioned before, same idea where, having things swell and come back in is quite nice. It gives the song a little bit more like an organic feeling, I would say. These layers, let's see. Yeah, just some Simple Serum. And then, yep, my favorite, guitar rig. Yep. And then we also have another, this is a preset. Yeah. And then we have Ashlight. Just a preset with some shimmer on it. And then here's my granulizer sonar sound thing. with just like, so here we have, yeah, more shimmer, and then I have, this is actually an echo preset within Ableton. Yeah, really nice, just like delay. It just has a nice length to it, so it just feels nice. And then sometimes running delays and reverbs in parallel is better than in series. And then yeah, just some EQing on that. And then let's see some of these other layers here. Yep, more my Sonar thing. Piano. Just like a little two-noter melody here.
I think I'm losing my damn mind.
And the bass. Yep. Pretty simple. Again, I love my overtones. So that's quite simple. And we got here, yep, just like a, yeah, just a maximizer, just kind of flattening that out.
Tonight, I think I'm losing my damn mind.
The vocals for now. Yeah, that same Sonar thing resampled here. Then we have a little serum thing going on here. A little bit of a LFO on this, just kind of swelling it in and out. Yeah, I would say the biggest sound would definitely be this. Yeah, just Analog Labs, just kind of a really eerie retro kind of sound. And then here, so when the chorus hits, then this bass comes in. And I love these kinds of basses where it's very heavy on the resonance. Oof. That just sounds so like deep, even though there actually isn't really any sub playing at the beginning of this because that fades in. But yeah, at the start of that just sounds like a really, I don't know, a lot of tension comes in there for me. And that's basically the intro. I mean, it's really simple. This is not a complicated intro by any means. But again, just because of the vibe of the song, remaining simple was the vibe. So for that reason, building out a lot of atmosphere with the interesting sounds is really the move that you want to do here. And maybe something I haven't talked about yet is effects. There isn't a whole lot to say, but the biggest thing is air and noise can do so much to expand a section. Because if I turn this off, let's see what this sounds like without any of that. Like it's fine, but if I turn this all on, noise. And this is one thing I made a while ago. This is just like the silent noise, just a quick hit, and then that's just getting delayed. And after that, so it's just like a quick, like a plucky kind of a thing, which is kind of nice to kind of give a section a little bit of movement, even though it's kind of like a dead stop breakdown section, but it helps to just have a little bit of something kind of moving along. And then otherwise, yeah, it's just some more stuff comes in here when the build hits. Yeah, and the thing I will say about all these things is typically when you find samples that you like a lot, you typically will start to just drag and drop them between songs that are of a similar vibe. And that's really the case with this. I mean, if you look at the other videos, you might see the same samples in those songs. But the one thing that I will do is maybe like the pitch of it, maybe I'll like change it up a little bit, or like I'll EQ it differently and mix it differently. But a lot of times it's like, you know, when you find the ones that you like, you just kind of stick with them and then you just kind of trust your ear to make sure that they sound good for the song that you're in. And then really quick on the break claps, because I know these sound quite lush. Biggest thing with break claps, if you want like a really lush sound, is variation. If you just have a single clap just kind of ringing out the whole time, that's really boring. But when you layer things together and then you have alternations, that's when you really get a nice feel to break claps. So in this case, yeah, I have some, you know, foundational layers here. Kind of like a snap in there. And then it opens up at the back half. But then I have these like Foley things going on. And that's only on the first and third one. Then I have some reverses here. Yeah, and then there's just more Foley in here too. Again, alternations, back and forth. Yeah, and these sounds are just like anything. If you go into Splice and you just like search like Foley, and you can think of things like paper, that's typically like what I go for is like crumpling paper sounds. That's typically really nice. And then you just kind of keep layering things until you think what you have is really lush. And from there, it's just really mixing it and just making it feel nice, having nice reverbs and everything. And then you're pretty much good to go. And then at the very end, when everything kind of opens up on the filters, yeah, just more cloud layers coming in there just to really bring out the claps more in that section. Again, biggest thing with these, it's not difficult to make professional sounding break claps. It really just comes down to going through your sample libraries or Splice and just finding things that sound good together and just varying things so that sounds nice. All right, so from there, let's look at the drop because this is where a lot of stuff is going on. A lot of layers, a lot of texture things coming in. Because especially with the first half of this drop, there's a riff that you hear throughout, but there isn't just like a singular strong melody that plays during the first half of the drop. And for that reason, it's kind of where it being more production centric is really comes from. I'll stop it there. So I will say, and I will admit, all the bass fills you hear, samples. Except for a clean bass sublayer on all of these. Maybe not too clean, but yeah. And this has to be high passed, yeah. Yeah, I do that sometimes where like I just feel like the sample doesn't have like a clean sub and I kind of want to control it better. So I'll go in and match it. Like this one's like pitching down. So I match the sub with that essentially, just so I have a nice clean sub layer. And then looking at the bass, let's see. Yep. Very much my style. A lot of heavy overtones, a lot of buzz and grit in here. Let's take a look at this in the beginning. Yep. So some presets that I made over the years. Overtone or up an octave. And maybe one thing I haven't mentioned, or if you've seen my TikTok or reel of like a note follower, this is exactly what I'm doing here. So basically, I have this Max for Live utility where what comes into it is MIDI, but then what it outputs is a frequency. And then if you set the range of the scale of the frequencies to whatever plugin you're trying to manipulate, you can get exactly the notes that you're playing to be in that plugin. So in my case, I'm using a Pro Q3 to bring out a lot of the overtones that you're hearing. But what's nice is that I don't have to like program in each note. I can just have the MIDI take care of that for me. And then as you can see here, I have like a pitch on here. So this is going up plus 19. So that would be plus an octave, plus a seventh. So that's an overtone. This is a higher overtone. And then I have another high overtone in here just to kind of bring out cool frequencies in this bass. As you can hear that, it's a really gritty, dirty bass, but that's, again, the vibe for this. Yeah, this is another layer on here. Yeah, this is just made in Serum, high overtone, and then again with note follower. Then this is mapped to the bus here. But again, this channel already has note follower, but then I'm doing more of that notch automation on the bus as well. There's no rules. So yeah, that's basically the bases. Let's take a look at all the leads going on here. So again, this is a lot of like these fast arps, and they're not always playing the exact same notes, but together it creates a nice chordal texture, I would say, for those parts of the drop. So it's not just a simple saw pad just like blaring at you. It has a little bit more movement to it that just to me sounds really, really nice. And then that's coupled with this here. Yeah, so this is actually pulled from Never Give Up on You, because the drop pad that you hear in Never Give Up on You, it is actually a resampled ARP that was going really fast, and then at the end of it, the tail, the reverb was resampled for all the chord hits in Never Give Up on You, and I basically just pulled that in to Fall Back to You. And then I do have some synth chords here as well. Pretty gritty. Yeah, and then that lead comes in right there. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that is a good thing to do with drops like this, where if it's kind of more riff focused, more so than having like a strong melody, bringing different sounds in and out is really good because it just adds variation and ear candy to what you're hearing so that it's not just the same all the way through, essentially. Again, a lot of layers coming, there's a lot of this like large chord RP sound that you hear. And then towards the end of the riff, then you get into just that melody that I have here. So after the first half of the drop, there's a double drop here, which then switches up and goes into a different drop melody here. And as you can see, I'm usually using a lot of the same synths here that I was using for those texture ARP sounds. They're being reused for that drop melody as well. The resample pads as well are coming back in there. And just some like other layers coming in here. Yeah, that's probably like your top lead, I would say, in conjunction with this lead here. Yeah. And then at the very end, this is a new sound. So that's in conjunction with this. A little bit of distance at the end there. It's like a half step. But again, dissonance in a song, never really a bad thing if it feels like it fits. And this right here, yeah, this is another preset. Hard wave, square whistle sound, good old Camel Crusher. And then, yeah, just slamming that all into a maximizer here. Yeah. So that's basically the drop. A lot of elements that all work together in the right ways to kind of create the whole riff that you hear in this drop. So that is basically the production of Fall Back to You. I'm going to switch over to the vocal comp project and we'll take a look at kind of my workflow and how I approach recording, comping, and then moving vocals into the main project. All right, so we are in the vocal comp project now. And this is basically the session that we recorded in. So whenever I'm recording vocals, it definitely comes down to the preference of the singer. Some like to not run autotune at all, some like it, but the one difference being I was using low latency mode instead of the normal mode. And on top of that, my audio settings would also be set to something like 128 or whatever I can get away with, just to minimize latency that you hear in your ear. I know there's a lot of producers that like to use universal audio stuff where they have the auto-tune and stuff running on the actual DAC. I get it where it's like zero latency and you're offloading that processing from your laptop, but I don't see the need really when, especially these days, when you can record things in the box with virtually no latency. So let's take a look at the lead vocal first. As you can see here, this is the comp. In this case, the idea was do a lot of takes, feel out if we think we have it, and then from there we would expand that and start to record harmonies and left rights and stuff like that. But the thing is, for me, comping, it's really all about what sounds good to you. And the one thing I will mention that maybe is not intuitive with comping is it really isn't a you do it once and then leave it. It's more of a you do a pass, you listen to it, you think about the flow, how things are, Because if you record like softer takes and louder takes, maybe you want to have the first verse be softer and then maybe you open it up more into the louder takes or whatever. But a lot of those decisions are not obvious until you are working with the track and listening to it a bunch. So one of the things that I do, as you can see at the end here, I have this render end marker. When I export that, I will overwrite the Vox lead stem in the main project folder and it'll just automatically update. So what's nice is that, I can focus on comping. I can, render out a pass, bring it to the main project, work with the song, and then as I hear things, I might decide things like, oh, that take should be different. I just open up the comp project, fix the comp, and then just re-render and overwrite the file. So yeah, so that's the lead. And then I don't know if I mentioned this, we did change the hook and these were recorded later and Nina recorded it in mono, but she bounced it in stereo, but that's why you see the stereo recordings here. And then, yeah, then we have a lower octave here.
Two ships passing by. You'll seek what you find. You and I collide.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to try and do as much as you can with the vocal in this project, just so that you're focusing more so on the track as a whole and your main project versus dealing with the vocal still in your main project. So things like warping, I really try to do a lot of that in the comp project before I bring it into the main project. And also when I bounce stems, I intentionally have all the processing that you're hearing in this comp project on a bus. So like EQ, compression, all this stuff, which is just good to hear for reference as you're working with the song. But I will redo all of that processing in the main project. And so for that reason, when I bounce stuff, I'm just bouncing this right here. And all this has on here is just autotune. And I think that's really good because, again, when you're dealing with the production of the song, you kind of want to be dealing with that in the main project, not in the comp project. And then here, there's always some like harmonies that we just didn't use. And this is kind of the benefit of doing things in person is that you can just try a lot of things and you can just decide later if it's good or not, really. So, I mean, this was not used. These other harmonies were not used either. But this harmony was used.
I fall back to you. I fall back to you.
Yeah, that was a very important harmony for the hook. We also recorded some outro stuff here, but again, none of this was used.
I'll be right or die.
And then one thing I like to do after you record all the vocals in session and you've maybe done like a rough comp in session just to make sure that you think you have everything, I always typically will ask a singer, let's just do some passes over the whole song and just ad-lib whatever it is that you're hearing. And there's times when you don't use any of it, and there's other times where it becomes like really instrumental to the song. And I would say with Fall Back to You, I don't think we use any of the ad-lib takes, but it was always really good to have them. Maybe I use them for some vocal blowouts and stuff, but typically when you're done with the song and everyone's happy with it, just kind of taking some like victory laps almost on the session. But the one thing I will say about ad-libs is these I do not comp. That's why I kind of label these as just like raw Vox ad-libs, because these I will literally just drag and drop into the main project if I'm going to use them. Because trying to comp these, it's like, what are you really comping? You're not even sure if you're going to be using it, so it's not like worth wasting your time on that. All right, so I would say that's Fall Back to You. Again, the song is very much carried by the production and the vocals. And I would say the overall result for the vibe that we were going for, I would say was very successful in achieving that serious, metaphorical type of vibe. So yeah, I really think that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.